On behalf of a heartbroken family, a prayer was sent out for their beloved's safe return. But on a quiet weekend morning in Arizona, law enforcement reports confirmed the unthinkable: a woman had vanished from inside her own home. Security cameras captured the final moments before she disappeared. Then, as authorities later confirmed, a chilling ransom demand arrived. The initial reports came directly from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And then came a decision that would change everything. A call from law enforcement that sent shockwaves across the nation. The homicide unit had been brought in. Authorities confirmed it publicly. Not search and rescue, not just missing persons. Homicide detectives were assigned to what was supposed to be a kidnapping. According to official statements, the order came from the very top Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos himself. As he told reporters, that single decision spoke volumes about the grim reality investigators were piecing together behind the scenes. The evidence they uncovered simply did not align with the standard abduction. Investigative sources confirmed the suspect's behavior raised immediate red flags, and the timeline suggested something far more complex than a simple ransom plot. According to statements from the Sheriff's Department, this is the investigation into the fate of Nancy Guthrie, mother of the renowned NBC Today Show anchor, Savannah Guthrie. Her case documented through official reports and public records. And this is why, as Sheriff Nanos himself stated, from the very beginning, investigators suspected they were dealing with a darkness far deeper than any ransom note could convey. Before we examine what the sheriff revealed, and why homicide detectives became the core of this investigation, if you follow cases where the evidence tells a story hidden in the shadows, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here at Unsolved Archive, we analyze the official statements, piece together the documented evidence, and follow the investigative timelines to understand what law enforcement knew and why a case takes a dark turn. Because in the world of serious investigations, the choices made by veteran detectives often reveal more than any initial statement to the press. And in the Nancy Guthrie case, those choices began raising alarms almost immediately. As reported by news outlets, Nancy Guthrie lived a quiet life in a comfortable Pima County home. Public records confirm she was in her 70s, requiring daily medication for conditions that needed constant care. According to statements later released by Sheriff Chris Nanos, she lived alone, in a house that was supposed to be secured by cameras and an alarm system. As investigators would later confirm, her daughter Savannah Guthrie's fame was a key factor, a face recognized by millions every single morning. That connection would fuel theories about motive, suggesting this was a targeted attack. But in the deep shadows of those early morning hours, as the timeline of events began to form, the most critical clues came from what the security system saw and what they didn't. What happened inside Nancy Guthrie's home was documented by cold, digital timestamps. But the story those timestamps told would completely shatter the narrative the ransom note was trying to sell. According to law enforcement statements, the timeline begins with irrefutable digital evidence from the home's security cameras. When law enforcement specialists reviewed the recordings, one detail became glaringly obvious. Someone had been inside Nancy Guthrie's home for a specific and unnervingly long period. Not 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, 41 minutes. That number, burned into the digital record, became the terrifying centerpiece of the entire investigation. To investigators, that number screamed two things: clear intent and a chilling familiarity with the home. To any experienced detective, the duration of a crime tells its own story. Experts in law enforcement analysis agree a common burglar wants to get in and get out. Speed is survival. Every passing moment increases the risk of being caught. But 41 minutes suggests something entirely different. It suggests a comfort with the environment, a deep knowledge of the security systems. It was time spent doing something far more sinister than just grabbing valuables and escaping into the night. A former DC homicide detective, Ted Williams, laid out the timeline, his assessment was brutally direct. 41 minutes inside the house, Williams made it clear that's not a burglary. It screamed of familiarity, of knowing the layout, the blind spots, and the security systems. To a professional like him, that window of time, raised a chilling question that haunted the investigation. Then came the mystery of the medication. Authorities confirmed Nancy Guthrie needed daily prescriptions, medicine that was essential for her survival. Investigators found the pills inside the home, they were out in the open. Easy to see. And yet, when she was taken, her life-sustaining medicine was left behind. A kidnapper who wants a ransom, needs their victim alive to collect the prize. But they left the one thing keeping her stable, the contradiction was a glaring red flag for analysts. Two theories emerged from law enforcement. Either the abductors were ignorant of her medical needs, which, after 41 minutes inside, seemed impossible, or the darker alternative. The medicine was left because keeping her alive was never part of the plan. It was a theory some investigators couldn't shake. Sheriff Nanos even stated it publicly. Nancy needed her daily medication, urgently. But by the time this news hit the airwaves, precious days had already vanished. Medical experts warned the window for her survival was closing fast, and Sheriff Nanos confirmed the grim reality there was no evidence any medicine had been given. And then, there were the security cameras, adding another twisted layer to the puzzle. The property was supposed to be under watch, equipped with cameras to catch any movement. But the official analysis revealed a critical failure. The cameras inside the house were blind during the abduction, and it wasn't a random malfunction. This was no coincidence. They were inoperable in a way that suggested one thing deliberate action, inside knowledge. Detective Williams connected the dots publicly. All that time inside meant the intruders knew, they knew the home's eyes were shut. How could they know, direct experience was one possibility. As Williams explained, it had to be someone who had been inside that house before. Someone with access. Someone who knew the security layout intimately. The other possibility. The information was leaked, perhaps by a contractor who'd worked on the house, a service provider with regular access, or even someone inside their social or professional circle, someone who knew every single vulnerability. Either way, investigators knew one thing for sure. This was not random. This was a targeted, meticulously planned operation. Then, the ransom call finally came. A demand for money was officially made. But the moment contact began, the process itself started raising alarms for law enforcement. Seasoned investigators know what to look for. There are patterns in these situations. The methods of contact, the payment demands, the proof of life, the timing. It's all a script. But in this case, the kidnappers went off script, their behavior didn't match any professional profile. The exact amount they demanded was never released. But the way they communicated, the timing of it all, had planted a deep seed of doubt among the investigators. Was this really about money, or was the ransom just a performance, an elaborate stage play to misdirect everyone? Authorities confirmed it deadline after deadline passed. The calls became erratic, then stopped altogether. And the most critical piece was missing. They never provided any credible proof that she was alive. All these clues painted a dark picture. Law enforcement was no longer sure they were dealing with a kidnapping at all. According to the official timeline, this was the moment Sheriff Chris Nanos made a call that would define the entire investigation. As he later revealed to the public, he brought in the homicide unit not as a quiet precaution, but as a bold public declaration, openly, deliberately. Specialists in criminal investigation were assigned to what was still being called a kidnapping. Sheriff Nanos chose his words carefully, but their meaning was brutally clear to every reporter in the room. He explained that he oversees search and rescue operations on a daily basis, often receiving multiple briefings, but rarely, he stressed almost never, does law enforcement call in homicide detectives for a missing person. This case, however, was different. It carried information that deeply concerned him, a chilling detail that told him this investigation had to be fought on two fronts. As he laid out for the media, the search and rescue teams would continue their desperate hunt for Nancy Guthrie, hoping to bring her home alive. But a darker mission had to begin in parallel, because, as the sheriff put it so bluntly, there is something that is not right here. That single statement, from the county's top lawman, sent a clear and ominous message. The subtext was impossible to miss. Investigators were not handling a standard kidnapping. They were already treating it as a criminal act with the gravest possible outcome. Inside the investigation, the evidence was painting a grim picture: the holes in the timeline, the bizarre behavior of those involved. It all pointed to one devastating conclusion: Nancy Guthrie might not be found alive. And more importantly, her disappearance was likely a charade, a carefully constructed lie. From the chaos, three distinct theories began to emerge. Theory 1. The kidnapping that went wrong. One possibility held that the crime was exactly what it seemed, but had spiraled out of control. In this scenario, someone targeted Nancy for ransom, but they were amateurs who bungled the execution and made critical errors. When the plan crumbled, panic set in, and the situation escalated into something far more tragic. This accounted for the ransom notes and the initial contact, but it failed to explain why crucial medications were left behind, or why the ransom exchange was so chaotic. Theory 2. The staged kidnapping. A second, more sinister theory suggested the ransom was never the true motive. The kidnapping was a performance, a smokescreen designed to misdirect everyone. The real reason Nancy was gone was personal, born from financial greed, a deep-seated resentment, or some other twisted psychological drive. According to this line of thinking, the ransom was just a prop to make a targeted, intimate crime appear random and opportunistic. This narrative better explained the intruder's deep familiarity with the home, and it accounted for the fundamental flaws in the ransom attempt. Then came Theory 3, an inside job. This final theory, though less developed, was perhaps the most chilling. It proposed that someone close to Nancy, be it family or a trusted associate, was the architect of this horror. This would explain the intimate, insider knowledge and the elaborate staging meant to point fingers anywhere but the truth. Who had that kind of access? As investigators burrowed deeper, they began asking questions designed to shrink the circle of suspects. Who knew the home well enough to navigate its blind spots and avoid the cameras? Who was aware of Nancy Guthrie's daily patterns, her greatest vulnerabilities, and who understood the security system so perfectly? They could move through the house for 41 minutes without raising a single alarm. These questions all pointed to individuals with privileged access, leading investigators to the contractor theory. The investigation's gaze first fell upon the contractors, men who had recently worked on the property. A neighbor's sharp eye pointed to something strange. Nancy's roof appeared almost unnaturally clean, freshly coated compared to others nearby. That neighbor, a woman named Laura Gargano, took her concerns to the media, telling CNN investigators should focus on those very contractors. The logic was chillingly simple. Day workers see everything: the layout of a home, daily routines, and security weak points. They build a familiarity that could be twisted, fitting the profile of someone capable of planning such an operation. This was an analysis echoed by experts, but the circle of suspicion was wider than just them. Law enforcement sources revealed the net was cast much farther, encompassing delivery drivers, service providers, and anyone with recent access to the home. But another factor added a disturbing new layer to the mystery: the timing. Nancy was taken at the exact moment her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, was leaving the country to cover the Winter Olympics. News reports highlighted the terrifying precision of the act. It felt far too calculated to be random, Investigative theories began to form around a single, chilling idea. Someone knew Savannah's schedule, knew Nancy might be alone, and saw a perfect window of opportunity. Sources confirmed this pointed directly towards someone with insider knowledge, not necessarily immediate family, but a person moving within their circle, someone who knew their plans and routines. As investigators pieced these theories together, the decision to bring in specialized criminal investigators from the start had already changed the game. Law enforcement experts explained that this move allocates resources with a new intensity. Evidence is processed with a different priority, and interviews follow far stricter protocols. The search was no longer just about rescue. It was about comprehensive evidence recovery. The entire mindset shifted from a hopeful return to a grim determination to find out what happened and who was responsible. Investigators began the painstaking process of sifting through each theory, weighing it against the facts. They questioned every contractor and service provider who had stepped foot on the property. According to official statements, they scoured financial records, hunting for any unusual motive tied to money. They delved deep into Nancy's personal relationships, searching for any hidden conflicts or simmering tensions. Investigators told reporters they were analyzing everything: communication patterns, travel histories, and the digital footprints of everyone in Nancy's orbit. But according to these reports, the work was a grueling and frustrating process. Leads that seemed full of promise would suddenly run cold, based on investigative updates. Crucial pieces of evidence would prove ambiguous under the harsh light of forensic examination. As the case dragged on without a breakthrough, investigators felt the mounting weight of public pressure for answers. The sheriff's department held press conferences whenever a major development occurred. But as the investigation moved into more sensitive territory, those briefings became less and less frequent. Their official statement that no suspects had been identified was, from a legal standpoint, entirely accurate. But law enforcement sources cautioned that this did not mean they had no theories. It meant they lacked the solid evidence required to make that accusation public. In the world of law enforcement, this distinction is absolutely critical. As experts have pointed out, naming a person of interest carries tremendous legal and ethical consequences. It can permanently damage their reputation, their rights, and the investigation itself. A substantial basis is required before law enforcement dares to take that step. The public's perception of silence did not mean an absence of scrutiny. As law enforcement confirmed, the family's plea transformed a national headline into a gut-wrenching human story. News outlets aired the heartbreaking video statements from Savannah Guthrie and her siblings, begging for their mother's return. The media captured it all. Their anguish was raw, visible, and tragically real. Savannah spoke of haunting nightmares, her mind tormented by the possibilities of what was happening to her mother. As she declared in the video, regardless of what theories detectives were chasing behind the scenes, their family's suffering was absolute. There was the family's emotional reality, and then there was the cold, hard reality of the investigation. They just wanted their mother back. Investigators, however, had a different mission to uncover the truth and hold someone accountable. Both goals were critically important, but they demanded entirely different methods and actions, leaving the case ominously open and intensely active. Detectives pushed forward, relentlessly following every lead and processing every piece of evidence. They were slowly building a chilling picture of what happened and who might be responsible. The decision to bring in specialized criminal investigators from the start was a game-changer, ensuring every clue was preserved for an inevitable prosecution. Legal experts confirmed the strategy was sound. According to authorities, search efforts zeroed in on specific areas, guided by developing theories and grim analysis, and Sheriff Nanos swore to provide updates on major developments, all while protecting the vital secrets of the ongoing investigation. As he revealed to the media, the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's fate was a showcase of methodical police work. They were meticulously untangling a complex case where the first impression was a carefully crafted lie. The case was a puzzle of contradictions. A ransom note pointed one way, but the suspect's actions suggested something far more sinister. Then there were the 41 minutes, a block of time inside the residence that completely destroyed the story of a random abduction. The digital evidence was undeniable. Calling in the elite criminal investigation teams was a clear signal from the top brass about the gravity of the situation. Whatever this case was, it demanded every resource they had. That single judgment call, as Sheriff Nanos explained, shaped the entire investigation and set them on the long road to justice for Nancy Guthrie, no matter how long it took or where the evidence ultimately pointed. Law enforcement was committed to the end. Those 41 minutes would always be the heart of the mystery. And as investigators knew, the medications left behind would forever raise dark questions about intent and meticulous planning. The sheriff's decision to deploy his most seasoned investigators from day one proved to be the bedrock upon which the entire case was built. It was a guarantee that when the answers finally came to light, they would be supported by irrefutable evidence, gathered and analyzed by the best. This was an investigation built to the highest possible standard. From this story, we learn a powerful lesson about growth, resilience, and the true meaning of strength. Real power is not simply the ability to defeat enemies or overcome obstacles through force. It is the courage to rise again after failure and the determination to keep moving forward when the world doubts you. The protagonist's journey reminds us that every person carries hidden potential waiting to be awakened through perseverance and self-belief. Life often places us in situations where we feel underestimated, forgotten, or left behind. Yet those moments are not signs of defeat. They are opportunities for transformation. Just as the hero evolves through hardship, we too grow stronger when we confront challenges instead of avoiding them. Success is rarely instant. It is built through patience, discipline, and the willingness to learn from pain. Another important message is responsibility. Power without purpose leads to destruction, but power guided by compassion creates change. True heroes protect others, inspire hope, and use their abilities to build a better future rather than seek personal glory. Ultimately, this story teaches us that destiny is not predetermined. Our choices, actions, and persistence shape who we become. No matter how small the beginning or how difficult the path, anyone can rewrite their story and become stronger than yesterday, not only in strength, but in character and heart.